Psychological assessments are envisioned by most people to consist of boring checklists, limiting Likert scales, and lengthy brain-twisting intelligence tests. Many people are aware of the Rorschach inkblot test due to its consistent emergence in pop culture, but most dismiss it due to the triviality of popular deceptions, and few understand the principles behind why it exists and what it is for. In fact, people's prior exposure to this test through pop culture is said to potentially invalidate their own results when taking it. The Rorschach test is widely known, but there are many other projective and expressive techniques for assessing individuals in therapy, and while these tests are quite controversial due to their subjective nature and difficulty in establishing reliability and validity, they have nonetheless remained popular, and when administered properly, with understanding of potential limitations, they are a powerful tool at our disposal that can have great benefits in therapy.
The House Tree Person Test, or HTP, is a projective technique that was developed in 1948 by John Buck. It was originally intended as an assessment of both current mental state and IQ, and was an adaptation of an earlier IQ test known as the Good Enough scale. The test involves having a person draw a house, a tree, and a person, and then asking them a series of questions about the drawings. Buck believed that people would project their inner world and unconscious thoughts into their drawings. The 3 representative symbols were chosen because they have specific psychological significance. In an earlier paper on the technique, Buck wrote, quote, "It has been found that the house, a dwelling place, and as such the scene of the most intimate and frequently the most satisfying or frustrating interpersonal relationships experienced by the subject, most often represents home. Home as it is now, as it was in the past, or as the subject would like it to be in the future. Regarded as a portrait of the subject himself, the house can provide the examiner with information concerning the subject's psychosexual adjustment based on the subject's ability to handle the several sexual symbols presented by the house. The subject's contact with reality, the ground line, is postulated as representing the level of reality. The further one goes upward therefrom, the closer one approaches fantasy. And the subject's accessibility. Doors are modes of ingress and egress. Windows usually provide for visual contact. The tree, an inanimate, living, or one-time living thing in an elemental, stressful environment, is apparently the one of the 3 disparate wholes that is most likely to convey to the examiner the subject's felt impression of himself in relation to his environment, since its structure and the method of its presentation are less dictated by conventional stereotype than are the structure and method of presentation of the house and the person. Further, it is apparently easier for a subject to portray graphically the ravages of environmental pressure upon a tree than upon a house or a person, without arousing within himself an awareness of such a portrayal. A tortuous and twisted trunk, broken branches, scars, etc., the equivalent of which would represent obvious mutilation on the house or person, serve only to add realism to the drawing of the tree, and are often found to represent events in the subject's past which he regards as painfully traumatic. It is postulated further that the trunk represents the subject's feeling of basic power, that the branch structure represents his feeling of ability to derive satisfaction from his environment, that the organization of the drawn whole represents his feeling of intrapersonal balance. The person, as a living or recently living human being, obviously lends itself well to direct self-portraiture. The subject may draw himself as he is now, in which case cosmetic flaws, physiological malformations, etc., are often reproduced faithfully, but usually as if mirrored. He may draw himself as he feels, and the projection of body feeling is often striking, or he may draw himself as he would like to be. In a sense, the drawn person appears always to be a self-portrait, but to the subject it may be the individual whom the subject most likes or dislikes, or toward whom he has highly ambivalent feelings. From the drawn person, the examiner may learn the subject's concept of his sexual role, based on physiological characteristics emphasized, and the subject's attitude towards interpersonal relationships in general, based largely on the perspective employed and the subject's comments." End quote. Buck's assessment of the significance of these symbols has stood the test of time, and the technique has survived several decades of use and a good bit of controversy. The original use of this technique as a sort of IQ test did not hold up well to the scrutiny of reliability and validity over the years. Quite a bit of the language used in the original research used terms for intelligence such as moron and imbecile, which, while acceptable in those days, are certainly no longer in use. Many of Buck's research methods were also questionable, especially his sampling methods. While Buck's original research included a series of over 60 questions to be asked in a post-drawing interrogation, or PDI, he specifies that it is up to the therapist to ask any additional questions needed to clarify and further explore the drawings. In the years since its inception, therapists have modified the use of this test significantly, and many have developed their own set of questions and treat the PDI as a more informal dialogue than a formal test. The IQ portion of the test is no longer in use. Additionally, many interpretation manuals and ideas about what various symbols might represent have come into existence and are available to help therapists work with their clients to interpret what their unconscious mind may be projecting onto the drawings.
The Kinetic Family Drawing Test, or KFD, was developed in 1970 by Burns and Kaufman. This was an adaptation of a similar test by the same researchers known as the Family Drawing Test. The Family Drawing Test simply asks an individual to draw themselves and each member of their family. The Kinetic Family Drawing takes this a step further by asking them to draw themselves with their family doing something. In the HTP and KFD, as well as many other projective expressive arts techniques, the instructions are intentionally vague. Therapists should try to avoid answering specific questions, as too much information can lead to overthinking the exercise and interference with the unconscious projection process. Kinetic family drawings are interpreted on a number of levels. The obvious questions as to what the family is doing, where, how, why, etc. are important. But other details that should be examined are the inclusion or absence of any specific family members, proximity of family members, features depicted in any of the figures such as facial features, hair, missing or disfigured body parts, etc., how closely the figures actually resemble the people, and the significance of any distortions, colors used, erasures or changes made in the process of completing the drawing, and any other significant aspects of the image. This process of interpretation is an opportunity to open a dialogue with the client to discuss their feelings, both conscious and unconscious, about their relations with members of their families and themselves.
Both House Tree Person and Kinetic Family Drawing tests bring up representations of family. While HTP does not directly ask any family-related questions, people frequently draw figures of family members in both the house and figure portions of the test. The house itself, as postulated by Buck, is often representative of the concept of home, either past, present, or future. The concept of home is often intimately tied to the concept of family, so it is difficult to discuss one without discussing the other. Understanding family dynamics is a fundamental part of being an effective therapist. None of us exists in a vacuum, and our relationships with others, particularly those closest to us, such as parents, grandparents, siblings, spouses, aunts, uncles, children, nieces, and nephews, greatly shape and affect who we are. In order to get a better understanding of clients' family dynamics and relationships between different branches of the individual's family tree, we can use another expressive arts technique known as the genogram. Genograms were first developed by Murray Bowen along with his family systems model in the 1970s. The technique was expanded upon and further developed by Monica McGoldrick and Randy Gerson in 1985. Since then, genograms have become a popular tool used by therapists, medical practitioners, and educators, among others. The genogram is a great way to get a picture of a person's family relations, as well as potential intergenerational issues. It differs from a family tree in that it includes more detailed information such as genetic issues, health concerns, and family dynamics such as divorce, feuds, affairs, and substance abuse concerns. The system developed by McGoldrick and Gerson includes visual depictions of relationships through representative shapes, color-coded lines, and symbols to represent the state and quality of social relationships. Creating this visual map with a client is an excellent way for a therapist to better understand their family dynamics. It also gives the individual an opportunity to think about their relationships with others and put that into words. This can lead to connections in understanding the dynamics of relationships, effective support systems, and negative issues emanating from unhealthy relationships. The visual nature of the diagram further aids this process and is an excellent way of developing a big picture view of the family from which clues and patterns may emerge. The genogram can also be referred back to and changed throughout the process of therapy as more information comes to light or as relationships evolve and change. Family is a vital aspect of all of our lives. For some of us, the concept of family brings up positive and happy feelings, while others may find it to be an uncomfortable reminder of strained relationships, hostility, and perhaps even abuse. Many people fall somewhere in between. Understanding the dynamics of family relationships is vital for therapists both in family therapy and individual counseling, as it is integral to a person's view of other people and the world around them.
As shown in this video, there are many assessment techniques available to us that go far beyond stuffy surveys and rigid quantitative exams. Expressive arts opens up a world of potential tools that can guide us in developing a dialogue with our clients about important aspects of their lives. Projective techniques such as the house tree person test and the kinetic family drawing are controversial because of their subjectivity and questions about their validity. Because of these issues, these tests should not be used in forensic settings or used to infer any concrete truths about a person. But in the process of therapy, these techniques can be invaluable in exploring aspects of consciousness that may not be readily accessible, and can aid us in getting a glimpse of a person's inner world. These techniques we have discussed in this video will only scratch the surface of what is possible with expressive arts. The world of our inner imagination is immensely valuable, and by tapping into it in the therapeutic space, we can open up pathways to the inner self that may not otherwise emerge.